Okay, so started off today by punting a very large amount of buy-ins and lost about $5,000. So time to rebuild. We're playing the $1,050 entry, $100,000 knockout tournament. And first interesting hand we have is Ace Jack under the gun. We open this up. Folds around to the button who calls. Flop comes 6-3 Jack, top. We're going to open this up. He calls. Turn comes a 9. We're going to continue to bet here. There's a lot of potential draws here. 10 Queen for open-ended. King 10's a gutter. Whatever. River comes another Jack. Now we're hoping he has some weaker Jack. Maybe he has Jack King, Jack Queen. It would be nice. Bet again. Calls. And he has pocket eights. Nice. So we get a big pot, close to doubling our stack. So now we're on the button with Jack 8 suited. And it folds around to the cutoff. Who opens? Call here. Flop comes Jack 3 ace. We have second pair here, and I guess a backdoor flush draw. And he's opening with a high percentage of his hands here. So we're going to call. Turn comes an 8. Now we're upgraded to 2 pair. Now we're hoping he actually has that ace. So when he leads out pretty big for about 2/3 pot, we decide to just go for the jam, partially because it's a knockout tournament, so you get that extra boost from knocking somebody out. He folds, probably didn't even have the ace, probably had, I don't know, maybe some sort of draw, or maybe absolutely nothing, but we take down another pot. So next hand we have King 6 suited in the big blind, so we're going to call, obviously. Flop comes 9-2, 2 hearts. So in this scenario, with the second nut flush draw plus a hand that should not favor the opening raiser's range, so we are going to lead out. He raises. At this point, we're not sure what he has that he's raising with, but with the flush draw, we're just going to call. Turn comes a blank. So if he had not raised on that flop, we would be leading out again here, but since he raised, we're just going to check it to him. And he bets a little over a third pot. So with the flush draw, we're going to call again. River comes a blank. We check. He checks it back. And he had ace 5 for ace high. So I guess if we had let out again on that river, we most probably would have taken that down. But he played it pretty strongly. So I guess I don't really have an issue with not leading on that river. I'm a little surprised that he raised that flop with ace 5. He had absolutely nothing and no draws on a board that did not. So next interesting hand, we have Queen Jack in small blind with a very small stack right next to us that we would like to take their bounty. So we're going to call this open. And surprisingly enough, the big blind with his 4 bigs just calls instead of raising. Kind of surprised. Flop comes very good though, as good as can be with trip jacks. We're going to lead out small. And we get the all in from the small stack, which is good. And a call from the initial raiser. Now the turn is the worst card in the deck. Now, any queen king is now ahead of us, and he has plenty of queen kings in his opening range. So we're not like super worried, but we know there is a legitimate chance that he can have it. So we just check to him to see if he'll take the betting lead, and he actually checks it back. At this point, we have absolutely zero worry that we are not ahead, and the river comes another 10, which can either be a good or bad card. Obviously, it's a bad card if the other person doesn't have a 10 because there's now 2 pair on the board. But on the one hand, if he has a 10 now, he's going to be forced to call the small bet. And even if he doesn't have a 10, it might look like I'm bluffing with the board being double paired. And he actually makes the call with ace high. Wow, so we got, oh, and the small stack shows 9 queens, so we take him out and take the bounty. So we actually got max value from ace high, which is pretty nice. On to the next hand, and this is a very interesting one. So we're dealt ace 10 off, undergun +1, undergun opens, we call here. Now, the next player 3-bets this. Initial raiser calls also. So in this scenario, with ace 10, most of the time, I'd be folding the 3-bet. But the 3-better here, I've played with him a bunch of times, and he 3-bets way too often and way too loose. So, I'm going to hope to hit something and be heads up against him because we'll take his money. Flop comes queen 7 deuce. Basically fully missed the flop. What do we have? We got like some backdoor runner on a straight and flush draws. Check it to the 3-better. Now he bets a quarter pot. This is actually a pretty small bet, smaller than his 3-bet, and he should be raising with basically most of his cards because that's what the 3-better should be doing. And since we know this guy is full of garbage, we're gonna make the call. Now the turn comes a 10, which actually gives a second pair, and it's a good card, obviously. So we now have some equity. Also, now if he was 3-betting with ace king, and like correctly 3-betting with ace king, we're now actually ahead. So we check it to him, and he checks it back. So at that point, we are thinking he has a few combos of ace king, right? Whatever it is, we have one ace, so block some combos. But he has some ace kings. Could have some lower pocket pairs, which we're ahead of, and he also can have complete air, which he does often. So we take a shot and we bet about 40% pot, pretty sizable bet, targeting 8s, 9s, or just he'll fold that as absolute garbage. And he calls and shows king 10. So he 3-bet with king 10 and then led on a queen 7-2 board. I mean, this guy in general I know is pretty full of garbage, so we take down a very large pot, which is quite nice. Okay, next hand, we got 8-4 off on the button. Now, in this situation, with 2 tiny stacks next to us, who both have bounties, we are just going to raise and see what happens. Now, small blind goes all in. Now, it's 10.5 for us to call, 16.5 in the pot. In a normal situation without a bounty, this would obviously be a fold. But with a bounty, I believe he had I think $500 bounty. It might have been 750. I don't actually remember, but it was a decent bounty. It's not worth it to call because we're risking 10 bigs to win either. I think it was $750. So we're just gonna make the call, and we'll see. Maybe we're up, maybe like a 30% chance against. I think we have about 32% chance against like any ace king, ace queen, any of those hands still. So we'll make the call. And we get literally, literally one of the only two hands that we would want to see. Pocket three, so we're flipping with 4-8. We hit a four, now we just gotta fade a three, and we do. So we take out those like 12 bigs, which is nice, but we more importantly we take that bounty, which wow, that was unexpected. So on to the next one, we have Queen 8 suited in the big blind. And it folds around to the small blind. And he shoves for 17 bigs. So again, similar to the other one, we want the bounty. But here we actually have a little bit better of a hand, Queen 8 suited, than 8-4 off. And when it folds around to the small blind can be shoving with a ton of hands. So we're going to make the call and try to win and take down this bounty. And we see that we are once again flipping. We'll take it. And we hit, okay. That is nice. We hit your queens on the flop. Take this down. Take another nice pot. We are now, I think, second in chips. And take down our next bounty. On to the next. And we have 7-6 offsuit in the small blind. And in case you didn't know, there's only one thing on my mind right now. And it's not winning. There's still 19 players left. And we want to win. And we'll get to that later, hopefully. But at this point, I have a table with a bunch of small stacks. And the only thing on my mind is to take out all these people and collect their bounties. So when it folds around to us, guess what? We jam. And he calls, okay. And he has King 3 suited. So he's ahead of us, obviously, but we have a decent chance. Flop comes brick, turns the brick, river, no help. Okay, so this time we do not collect the bounty. So on to the next hand, we have King 8 suited in the button. Now I'll give you a few seconds to guess. What am I about to do here? Okay, your time's up. I jam. And we get called. We're up against 10, so we are definitely behind. Gotta hit a king or some diamonds. Flop comes, no help. Turn, no help. River, no help. Okay, so we lose another one. Still have the second biggest stack. And we're going to still try to take out some more bounties, but gotta be a little bit careful. We don't want our stack to drop too much. So we are now a bit later, and we had in between lost a lot of small pots and not successfully taking everyone else out. Down to sub 30 bigs, ace king, and small blind. And we get an open from the cutoff and a jam from the button. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to jam. Try to take him out with a good hand. Get the jam, and we are up against King Jack, so we are way ahead. Just got to fade a jack. And we do. Hit the straight, and we take him out, get the bounty, and get our stack back to 50 bigs. This tournament has actually been one that's important to me for two reasons. Number one is I punted away a lot of money earlier in the day, playing stupidly, getting unlucky, whatever. Obviously things that are going to happen, not a big deal. But played this last tournament, and unlike some previous tournaments where I've done well, and I really was dealt basically no hands. I was dealt garbage.
zero, like ace king, I think once, maybe twice, I'm not sure. No aces, no kings, no queens, no jacks, no premiums literally the entire time. So I've gotten towards the top with 12 players remaining just by bluffing, stealing small pots, once in a while hitting hands, but like through a lot of playing and just not getting the best hand. So it's good that I'm doing well even without just being dealt great hands. Stay tuned for part 2 and the run on the final table.